Let me just say this. The truth about Halloween might shock you. Is it just an evil holiday, or does it hold actual spiritual and astrological meaning that we should embrace? If you want to uncover some of that mystery, this is the video for you. Hola my beautiful lotus flowers, welcome back or welcome to my channel. If you're into nerdy now on everything astrology, spirituality, and self-transformation, this is the community for you. Today we're talking all things Halloween, its origin, its spiritual significance, its connection to astrology, and I am so excited because obviously there are a lot of videos around this, but I want to talk about it in my own way. And I hope that you're able to take something valuable from this video. Something that has only been just a fun, goofy holiday for a lot of us might actually hold a lot of value behind it that we can take advantage of during this time of year. First, we're going to chat a bit about the real history behind Halloween. Where does Halloween actually come from? A lot of its origins are very mysterious because we don't actually have perfect written proof of the timeline of the development of modern day Halloween. So if there is anything that I do not cover when talking about the origins, or if there's anything that may be slightly tweaked or a little different, just know that I'm not some professional historian on the origins of Halloween. Again, there's a little bit of varied information across sources just because the origins of Halloween are a little bit mysterious. Like I said, I'm going to give you the best idea that I can about its origins, and that way it can lead us into the rest of the video and you'll have a base understanding of Halloween and where it came from. The original Halloween was actually a Celtic tradition known as Samhain. Samhain was a festival held by the Celts to honor the official transition from the lighter half of the year to the darker half of the year, because October 31st is the approximate midway point between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. But not only was this a festival held to honor the season's transition, it was also a significant time of year because it likely marked the Celtic New Year, since the Celts may have viewed this time as the start of their new year. So Samhain had a similar energy to that of the full moon, where it was a time of completion as they prepared for the harsh winter months ahead. This is when crops were harvested, animals were rounded up for the winter or sacrificed, business matters would be finalized, and Samhain would be a celebration honoring the abundance of their harvest and tying up loose ends. In addition to abundance, ancient Celtic spirituality emphasized the concept of existing between the physical realm and the spirit realm. And because Samhain was the midpoint between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice, the Celts believed that this transitional period between seasons actually lifted the energetic veil that separated the physical from the spiritual, or the living from the dead. Therefore, the festival would also include setting out meals and offerings in case deceased loved ones paid a visit, or in case other spirits decided to visit, such as fairies, sprites, etc. Much of the ancient rituals associated with Samhain have been lost in translation, making Samhain's historic timeline and the details regarding the exact practices unclear. But at some point in the 5th century CE, when Christianity began to make its way through Europe, the church incorporated some pagan practices carried out by the Celts in order to make Christianity more appealing to them, making conversion to Christianity more likely. As the church's influence grew, they developed Samhain into All Hallows Eve and All Saints' Day, essentially acting as a time to honor those who have passed. On All Hallows Eve, that would be held on October 31st, which was the day that they believed the dead to rise. They believed that the veil was lifted at that time and that the dead would show up, loved ones would show up, or it was a time when those who died that past year were waiting to pass onto the other side. Then November 1st would be All Saints' Day, which is the day that the dead laid to rest and the veil was no longer lifted, and it was a time to honor those who have officially passed and gone into the other realm. And by the 14th century, this was a widespread Catholic holiday. And it was in somewhere in the 19th century when a lot of the Irish started to relocate to America because of the potato famine that was widespread back in Ireland. So because of the relocation to America, they brought a lot of those traditions with them, a lot of those old Celtic traditions. By this time, they had already mixed in with the Christian traditions. So some of that original Samhain tradition was already lost at this time. But certain traditions, such as pumpkin carving, dressing as entities or spirits, which is where the idea of costumes came from, all of that was carried into America. It was over time that this would morph into what we know as modern day Halloween. The name Halloween, again, there's not like a perfect proof, there's not perfect proof of how it developed, but it started with All Hallows Eve, which is basically Hallows Evening. And if you're American or you know American culture very well, from the dawn of time, we tend to like to shorten things and say things the easier way or the improper way. We create a lot of slang, which is where the stereotype tends to come from, that Americans have a very twangy way of speaking or a very like lazy way of speaking. And so All Hallows Eve over time got shortened into Halloween. So Hallow Evening, All Hallow Evening got shortened into Halloween. Enter modern day Halloween and what it has morphed into now. As you can see, Halloween definitely started as a tradition from the Celts that was very connected to nature and honoring the cycle of nature, the transitional time of the seasons, the time to start wrapping things up. And it was a huge celebration of everything that they had harvested and a celebration of moving on to the next chapter, the next cycle essentially. This is one of the reasons that some of these specific rituals that they would carry out is part of where the most mystery comes from, because people don't know the exact pagan rituals that they held during the original Samhain festival. But it is speculated that the animals that they sacrificed during that time, because if they had livestock that needed to be laid to rest, or if they needed to sacrifice in order to offer certain things to some of the spirits, etc., whatever the reasoning, they would usually slaughter certain animals, certain livestock, and then they would feed their bones to the fires and they would create a bonfire. People would then take their torches and go light it from the bonfire and take it to their houses and sit outside the houses. And this was a way to help guide the spirits that would come into the physical realm. From those animals they slaughtered, they would also use their hides to dress up. So if you see like old pictures of pagan festivals of supposedly Samhain or traditional Halloween, they're dressed usually with like animal heads and animal skins on them, and they're dancing around a fire. This was their way of honoring that natural cycle of life that the Samhain festival was celebrating. It was essentially celebrating the harvesting of life, harvesting what they created, bringing it to completion, and then before winter is kind of like a reset. Winter is like a blank canvas. Everything gets wiped clean and reset, so that way you can renew and continue on into the next year. The original Samhain festival in every sense was a celebration of death and the birth of new life. The birth and harvesting of life and the renewal that comes from death. Like I said, the church incorporated some pagan practices originally just to be attractive to the Celts, so that way Celts would want to convert to Christianity, and they refused to let go of some of their pagan traditions, so the church had to adopt some of them in order to be more appealing. But as time went on and the church grew and expanded and its influence grew, it started to denote Halloween and its celebrations as something demonic. It believed that this celebration of death, or this connection to the dark energies or to the spirits that cross over onto the physical realm, is considered evil. It's an evil tradition. It's not something to be taken seriously or something to be celebrated. They skewed the view completely of Halloween over time in order to bring favor to the church, and it wasn't meant to celebrate or honor what the Samhain festival would originally celebrate. So that's why Halloween kind of just became like a fun, like lighthearted, like People act like it has no spiritual significance behind it when actually it does, and that's what I'm going to dive into a little bit more. Now let's talk about astrology's connection to Halloween and the spiritual meaning of Halloween. Although Halloween was developed from an ancient tradition with a lot of significance, many don't realize that it's actually a cosmic holiday as well, one that holds a lot of meaning in astrology. As I mentioned, Halloween came from a celebration of the midway point between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. In astrology, this is seen as the cross-quarter day, the day that marks the official start of a season and represents the peak energy of the season. Halloween is actually the fourth cross-quarter day of the year. The others are Beltane, Lammas, and Imbolc. But a fun fact about this cross-quarter day is that it actually happens on November 7th now. But October 31st is the date that has been set by tradition, so Halloween is always celebrated on October 31st despite this. It probably goes without saying that each cross-quarter day that I just mentioned holds its own spiritual significance and its own meaning. You can often look at the zodiac sign that the sun is passing through at the time of that cross-quarter day for the spiritual significance behind that time of year. So, since we're talking about Samhain, which is the midway point between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice, it's the cross-quarter day that we're focusing on right now. The sun is passing through 15 degrees of Scorpio at this time of year. If you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos like this one, and you let me know that you want more videos like this. Otherwise, if you don't interact at all, then I just think that you hate me, and that's fine, I guess. And leave a comment down below if you have any fun facts about Halloween, any traditions that you like to do for Halloween, or just how you feel about Halloween in general, or if any of this resonates. Let me know down below. As many of us may be aware, Scorpio is known as one of the darkest signs of astrology. And one of the reasons for this is because of the influence of Pluto. It's modern planetary ruler. If you don't know, Pluto is seen as the god of the underworld in astrology. It is related to the Greek mythology of Hades. So it is well known that Scorpios are connected to death. They often have a very, very close connection to the idea of death, whether that is actual physical death or spiritual death. A lot of people who are Scorpio themselves or have a lot of Scorpio placements can tell you that they have experienced a multitude of rebirths and transformations in their lives, as well as a lot of mini karmic cycles. They often have a karmic influence on somebody else's life. Say a Scorpio or someone with significant Scorpio placements comes into somebody's life. There's a big chance that they're kind of like, you know, the tower in tarot? Scorpios often serve as the tower in tarot for people. So they come into somebody's life and that person's life completely transforms. They have their own type of rebirth. So this is where Scorpio really connects to the idea of death and rebirth. They're very connected to the idea of the phoenix rising from the ashes of death. Oftentimes, the reason that Scorpios embrace darkness, or whether they dress themselves in a way that shows that they're in tune with darkness, or whether they just carry themselves in a way where they're in tune with the dark energies of the world. This isn't to say that they are associated with evil energies. A lot of people associate Scorpio with evil dark energies just because they're so connected to that darkness, but that's not necessarily the case. Scorpios are just very well aware of that darkness, and a lot of times if they're developed Scorpio or Scorpio placements, they use that for spiritual transformation, and it can create some of the wisest spiritual figures in this world, or some of the wisest people you may ever meet, if again they choose to evolve and grow from those deaths and rebirths that they're faced with. So the same way that Scorpio constantly walks that line between the physical and the spiritual when it comes to the idea of death, this time of year opens us up to the same energy. Halloween, All Hallows Eve, the Samhain festival, all of it holds the same spiritual significance connected to the symbolic meaning of Scorpio and connected to the energy around Scorpio. Whereas a lot of people fear the darkness and try to stay away from the darkness, and they automatically associate darkness with evil, Scorpio encourages us to embrace that darkness and it is a very feminine, energetic time of year. So if you're familiar with the masculine and the feminine in spiritual energy, again, we're not talking about the traditional sense of masculine and feminine, boy, girl. We're not talking about that. We're talking about spiritual masculinity and femininity. Femininity is dark energy, but dark energy is not bad. Feminine energy is water energy, which again, Scorpio is a water sign. So we're talking about really coming into tune with shadow self, with your shadow side, and learning from that and creating transformation from that. Therefore, whenever that veil between the spiritual and the physical is thinner, it opens up the opportunity for us to be more in tune with subtle energies that we can't usually detect or see. This is actually a potent time of year for spiritual rituals that bring you closer to that shadow side of yourself, the side of yourself that maybe you often reject or you're scared of and you actually need to learn from. This is a beautiful time of year to practice that, because what happens at this time of year is, just like the Celtic tradition used to follow the harvesting of the crops and getting rid of any excess that they had at this time, that is what we're doing when we're transforming. So in order to step into your highest self, into the timeline that you want, you have to release a certain level. You have to give up a certain energy or a certain part of yourself. And this time of year can really open you up to what may be unclear most of the time. And suddenly it can become clear if you remain open to it. The darkness and the light have to coexist. One can't exist without the other. Opening yourself up to these unseen energies that are much more potent at this time of year can help you identify where to rid what no longer serves you. And by doing so, we jumpstart our own transformation. We are able to create that blank canvas for the next cycle of our lives. Instead of only thinking of this time of year as connected to physical death and thinking about skeletons and ghosts and etc., monsters or demons, whatever, instead of just thinking about the physicality of death and the physical and the scariness that death can hold for a lot of us, this time of year is an invitation into the underworld of your own psychological makeup, if you will. Scorpio is a very mental, psychological sign, and that's partially because it's not afraid to explore the depths within. It's not afraid to explore the depths that most are afraid to explore within themselves. So this time of year is an invitation into the depths of your own psyche and your own emotions, your unconscious mind, your shadow self. What are they trying to tell you? What do they hold? What patterns do they have? What darkness do they hold that you need to explore? Halloween is truly an invitation to dive into the dark, unknown realms of life, the mystery of life, if you will. In the traditional spirit of Samhain, this is truly a time for you to enlighten yourself, shed light on the hidden areas of your life that's keeping you in the shadows that you didn't know existed. Dive into that part of yourself and allow yourself to go through that beautiful transformation that happens when you dissolve everything that's not meant for you so you can see more clearly what is meant for you. To close out this video, I want to give you a few Halloween ritual suggestions that I think can be beneficial at this time. Everybody has different preferences on rituals that they like to do. So these are just a few that I think are beneficial types to hold around this time of year. The first is to deep clean your space and rid your home of any excess that you have. So again, we're creating that blank canvas, that canvas for renewal that comes from the death of things. If your home has been cluttered and holding a lot of stagnant energies because you haven't cleaned it, maybe you've been in a bad mental state and you just haven't been able to clear your desk, to clear your floor, and just doing that is a powerful energetic ritual for you, and it can make a massive difference to move into a era of transformation in your life, or to move into a new chapter. So getting rid of extra things that maybe are harboring energies that you don't need, let them go throw them away, burn them, whatever it is. This is a very powerful time of year to actually burn things. If you have a safe way and a knowledgeable person, if you're knowledgeable in burning things or you have a safe way to do it, I encourage it, but again, only if it's safe. Next is smudging your space and smudging any spiritual items that you have, like resetting your altar or smudging crystals, tarot cards, etc. Because again, these items, every item holds energy. Everything is energy. Nothing is just a block of nothingness. Everything is energy. So everything harbors a certain frequency and a certain energy. And your spiritual items, if you have any, such as your candles, your stones, your crystals, your tarot cards, etc., those items harbor their energy, especially because you're always using them to practice rituals or practice certain energetic work. They need to be regularly cleaned, just like anything else. They collect the dust of stagnant energies or maybe negative energies that have been channeled through them, or they harbor certain energies that need to be cleansed of. So this is the perfect time of year to reset your altar for the winter months and to get ready for, again, a new chapter in your life. Another powerful practice to do at this time of year is to journal about your shadow self and what you can work on releasing internally. So the shadow self, essentially, it sounds so like spooky and dark, but we all have a shadow side. We all have what a lot of people would consider a demon living inside of us. What they are is your shadow self. This is a time to welcome your shadow self to the stage. Let it take the stage and give yourself the grace and the space to examine that self, that part of you. What does it need? Maybe it's part of your inner child. Maybe your shadow self is developed from your inner child and traumas that you've experienced. Maybe you're still reacting from a traumatic space and you haven't realized it. But once you focus on your shadow self, once you put it up in the limelight to look at and examine, you can see clearly that this has been keeping you from doing this. This has been keeping you from progressing forward. Something about your shadow self has been preventing you from moving forward or from releasing something that doesn't serve you. This is the perfect time of year to examine that. Put it in the spotlight and journal about it. Journal your emotions, your raw thoughts, everything that you can. There's a lot of cool videos and a lot of articles and everything that you can look up that have prompts to get you started on your shadow self. So you can look up like shadow self journal prompts. I highly encourage cleaning and cleansing and then journaling. I don't recommend doing this in a space that is still cluttered and still harboring those stagnant energies, because it's going to be harder to get in tune with yourself if your space is not in tune as well. Another powerful ritual at this time could be to pray to your ancestors and honor them in some way. A lot of cultures around this time of year would do something to honor their ancestors, because this is a celebration around physical death, spiritual death. The traditional Samhain and other festivals, such as if you're Hispanic and you know Dia de los Muertos, it's a time where you celebrate loved ones who have passed and you essentially are helping guide them into the other realm of life so they can rest, or you're trying to guide them home, if you will, to their new home. So this is definitely a time to get in tune with those that have come before you and those that have made life possible for you now. I am not at this moment in time well versed in how to honor your ancestors and spiritual rituals around that. So that's another thing that I encourage you to look up and do your own research on. But I just know that if there's a time of year to do that, it's this time of year, because your ancestors hold a lot of knowledge. And some of that knowledge has already been ingrained in you, just genetically, neurologically, it has been ingrained in you. But there's a lot that we can call upon. We can call upon our spirit guides, whether our spirit guides are actually our ancestors, whether they're separate. You can call upon them at this time because, again, that veil is thinner. Those energies are more potent at this time. So it's a great time to honor them if you can. Again, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so I know you want to see future videos like this and I don't just think that you hated this video and you don't like me. And again, leave a comment down below too about your Halloween traditions, what you're most excited about when it comes to Halloween. If you have any spiritual practices you do at this time of year, let's just chat about all things Halloween below. I'd love to know. But until I see you in the next video, thank you so much again, as always, for being here. Every single one of you watching this counts, and I appreciate every last one of you. Until I release another video, you can watch these ones to help you on your astrological and spiritual journey. But I can't wait to see you next time. Adios.